I'm LK Gagnon, Associate Director of Student Aid at Bowdoin. Thanks for joining me for this information session about financial aid. I'd like to start by letting you know how important it is to us to make Bowdoin affordable for you. If you're that student who's admitted to Bowdoin, we want you to be able to come to Bowdoin. And we recognize that for many, many families, that can only happen with generous financial aid. When you come here, we want you to be totally engaged in academics and research and clubs and activities and athletics, all those things that make college college. We don't want you to be worried about how you're going to pay for it. We also know that if you do come here, when you graduate in 4 years, you are going to take everything you've learned and all those experiences you've had out into the world, and you're going to have all the tools that you need to be successful, whatever that means for you. And being a part of that process at the very beginning means a lot to us. So let's talk about financial aid at Bowdoin. There are two main things to know. And in fact, these are so important that if it's all you remember from this presentation, I will be okay with that. First, all financial aid at Bowdoin is need-based. That means it's based on your family's ability to financially contribute. We don't have academic merit scholarships. We don't have athletic scholarships or art scholarships. All of our aid is based on your family's financial situation. So number one, important thing, Bowdoin aid is need-based aid. The second important thing to know is that we will meet 100% of your family's demonstrated need, and we will do that with grants, not with loans. So remember, loans need to be paid back, but grants don't. So the second most important thing to know, we will meet 100% of your family's need, and we will do it with grants. Now, when it comes time to apply for aid at Bowdoin, you'll find that our policies are pretty much the same as you'll find at any similar college. We're going to ask you to apply each year that you're at Bowdoin. If you are a U.S. citizen or you're an eligible non-citizen, you will complete the FAFSA. That's an online form which is used to determine your eligibility for federal aid, things like the Pell Grant. We will also ask you to submit the CSS profile, which is also an online form, and it's what we use here at Bowdoin to determine your eligibility for aid from the college. And finally, you'll be asked to submit supporting federal tax returns. If you're an ineligible non-citizen living in the US, you won't need to complete the FAFSA, but you will need to complete the CSS profile and to submit those supporting financial documents. And then if you are a Canadian student, you will submit the CSS profile and you will submit your federal Canadian tax returns. And then finally, if you're an international student from any country other than Canada, we will have you submit the CSS profile and earnings and tax statements from your home country in whatever form they take in your home country. Now, if you're an international student who will find the cost of submitting the CSS profile to be prohibitive, we will certainly accept the International Student Financial Aid Application, also known as ISFA. That's available on our website, and we're happy to take it. So those are the requirements for your financial aid application. You submit those all by the deadline, and then it's our turn to get to work. And the first thing we're going to do is review those documents to determine what your family can reasonably be expected to contribute toward 1 year of college at Bowdoin. You might hear this called the family share, or the family contribution, or the net cost. Those all mean the same thing, and it's just the amount that your family will be asked to pitch in for that 1 year at Bowdoin. So we're going to look at your income, we're going to look at assets, and then finally at your household size. And when we look at your household size, we're paying particular attention to the number of dependent students who are attending undergraduate full-time. So we look at your income, your assets, and your household, and we determine what we believe is a fair family share. So the next step is maybe the most important step. It's how we determine what your family's need is. You also hear this called calculated or demonstrated need. And in order to do that, we have to start with the total cost of attendance. So at Bowdoin, the cost of attendance is made up of two sort of categories of expenses. The first are direct or billed expenses. These are the things which will appear on your semester bill every time. The other category is unbilled or indirect expenses. And these are costs we know you're going to come across while you're in college. They just aren't ever going to be billed to you. So they're things like travel back and forth to home, books, and personal expenses. So we add those two together and we get the total cost of attendance. So then the step comes where we determine your needs. So we start with the total cost of attendance, and then we subtract your family share. So the cost minus what you can pay, the rest, that's your need. And that's the amount that we're going to meet with grant assistance. Now, if I were you, I might be wondering about now if there was a way to find out what my family share might be before I've even applied to Bowdoin. And there sure is. We have a couple of great resources on our website that can help you do just that. The first is called the Quick Cost Calculator. As the name suggests, it's pretty quick and easy. Honestly, it's just 6 questions about your household and your family finances. And the result it gives you is a range. Now, depending on your family's financial situation, it might be a pretty small range. It might be a pretty big range. But either way, it's really useful as a great starting point. It's a place for you to start having conversations with your family about how you're going to pay for college and what your expectations are. So I definitely encourage you to use the Quick Cost Calculator, but I am more enthusiastic about encouraging you to use the Net Price Calculator. It's not as quick. It's a lot longer. It goes into a lot more detail into your family finances, but it also yields a much more accurate, pinpointed result. Also, with the Net Price Calculator, when you get your results page, we encourage you to go ahead and forward that result to us. We'll reach out for some more financial information, and then we'll get back to you with the most accurate estimate that we possibly can. Now, if you're a student who's considering applying early decision, at the very least, please complete the Net Price Calculator. Early decision is a binding agreement, and you don't want any surprises. You want to really have a good idea about what the expectation will be for your family to contribute before you've been admitted. So even if you don't feel like forwarding the results to us, at least do that Net Price Calculator. Now, a couple things to remember about that Net Price Calculator. First, calculators are only as accurate as the information you enter into them. So this is absolutely not the time to be guesstimating. You really want to have your financial documents with you so you can be sure you're answering the questions correctly, so that you can feel confident in the result you get. And then there are a few populations for which the calculators either won't work or just aren't as accurate. I'm sorry to say that if you're an international student, they just won't work for you. They are completely based on the US tax system. And there really is no estimator that I know of for international students. And I'm sorry to tell you that. For domestic students, if your parents are divorced or separated, the calculator won't really work because it's set up to look at just one household rather than 2. That doesn't mean you can't get an estimate. You absolutely can. I would encourage you to send us an email asking how to do that. We're happy to help out with that. The other population is families where a parent is self-employed or part of a partnership or an S-corp or anything like that. Those are just more complicated tax situations. The Net Price Calculator can't do anything. Again, just send us an email in our office and we will be happy to get back to you with instructions on how to get an estimate. And the last thing I want to say about Net Price Calculators is good news, and it's that every college in the United States has Net Price Calculators, at least one on their websites, not just Bowdoin. So once you've winnowed your list down from 100 or so colleges down to 50, down to the 6 or 8 or 10 that you're actually going to apply to, it's a great idea to make sure you do the Net Price Calculators at each college. Those calculators are set up to reflect each college's policies, so you won't get the same answer from 2, and it's a great time for you to sort of see, oh, this is how a university looks at financial aid as compared to a private college, and how private colleges can differ even from one another. So I encourage you to check that out. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is financing. And while I talk about financing, I'm going to share our contact information here at the Student Aid Office so that you know how to get in touch with us. All right, there you go. That's up. So in terms of financing, and I realize this is looking down the road. This is when you get your first semester bill coming up, maybe in about a year and a half from now. But it's never too early to start thinking about this. So I just want you to know some of the resources you have available to you here at Bowdoin. The first is if you are a family who's considering paying some or all of your share of the cost of college from cash flow, good for you to know we do have a payment plan at Bowdoin. So rather than paying your build expenses in big chunks, one in August and one in January, you can actually spread those out over 8 or 10 months. It makes it a little bit easier for you. The second thing I want to clear up is some confusion around the idea of student or parent plus loans. Bowdoin is really proudly known as being a no-loan school. And what that means is we don't use loans to meet your need. Do you remember way back at the beginning, there were only 2 things I needed you to remember. And the second one was we'll meet 100% of your demonstrated need with grants, not loans. That's what it means to be a no-loan school. It doesn't mean that you can't borrow loans if you want or need to. Of course you can. We work with the federal direct student loans, parent plus loans. So if you decide to borrow once or twice, or if you decide to borrow the whole time you're at Bowdoin, that's absolutely fine. We can help you with that, and we are happy to do that. Now, the last thing about financing is aimed at the students, really only the students, and I want you to be thinking pretty hard about outside scholarships. So Bowdoin has a really liberal policy on outside scholarships, and that we allow them to benefit you, the student, and your family as much as we possibly can. And in fact, really, the only time we'd actually have to reduce your Bowdoin scholarship grant would be as if you received so much funding in outside scholarships that when we combined it with the financial aid you already had, the total was more than the cost of attendance. That would be actually a great place to find yourself, obviously, but I think you can understand you aren't actually allowed to make a profit on your financial aid. So that's the last thing I have to say, folks. That's pretty much the roundup of the basics of Bowdoin financial aid. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. I also hope very much that you're enjoying your college search. This is a great time, and have fun with it. And please be in touch.